Hi everyone, I'm Andy Russell, as my dean said. I want to take a few minutes and talk to you about our new program in Science and Technology Studies. We have two majors that I'll tell you a little bit about. First, I should probably tell you what the field is of Science and Technology Studies. It's an interdisciplinary field. It draws on our existing disciplines, as we've heard and as I'll explain. In part, it seeks to explain the forces that shape science and technology, so historical forces, sociological forces. Where did these things come from? But it doesn't stop there. It also seeks to explain what these things, what this knowledge does in our world, what effect it has on us in the ways that we live our lives. There was, unfortunately, for all of us here, no better example of what this field talks about than Hurricane Sandy. And in thinking about Hurricane Sandy and thinking about our new program, the links are pretty easy to make. Was this a technological disaster? Was it a human catastrophe? Was it a natural catastrophe? It doesn't quite make sense to draw those distinctions in the way that we might do along traditional disciplinary boundaries, hence the interdisciplinary focus of our field. Sandy shook us all up. It made us look at things literally in a new way, to see things that we hadn't really seen before, and to understand the fragility of the world around us. It did that in what for many of us was a very personal way. And it made us think about our dependence on technology, our dependence on things like transportation infrastructures, and our dependence on the experts that we rely upon to make these infrastructures work. This is the picture that took all of our breaths away, I think, when we saw it, of the PATH stations here in Hoboken. So one of the things that we're doing here at Stevens, that we've already in fact started doing earlier this month, late last month in November, was to hold a public event on Hurricane Sandy to think about it in an academic perspective, to think about what lessons we've learned and what we as academics and as scholars of science and technology can do about it. And so this is sort of a nondescript picture, but there's one part in this picture that had a great deal of personal meaning for many of us in Hoboken, and it speaks to what the program is about. This is one of the substations that was flooded and caused the city of Hoboken to lose power. And the question that we've been asking, and it's an empirical question, we can find answers to this. Why was it there? Why was it located at or beneath sea level? Who makes that decision? Is it the power company, a regulated monopoly, some group of self-interested engineers, some thick government bureaucrat? We don't know. So there's historical approaches to figuring out how our built environment got to be the way it is and what consequences that has for us. Sandy also prompted a lot of us to think about our relationships with structures of power. In this case, in this slide, with the federal government and with the military. Something that in current political discourse, both parties agree we want to decrease our reliance on the federal government and to increase individual autonomy. But when push comes to shove, the mayor of Hoboken was on TV practically begging for the National Guard to come in. It was a scene echoed everywhere. And so it caused us to rethink in political terms, what is our relationship with the federal government? At the same time, it caused us to think and prompted us to think in more sophisticated ways about different types of government. It doesn't make sense to think of government as the government, right? Government enters our life in many different ways, in many different guises. And I like this slide that you're looking at now for two reasons. One is because it indicates the coordination that took place during Sandy, and takes place frequently between different branches of government, between different types of government. In this case, the National Guard, perhaps overseen by FEMA, and local government. The picture depicts a helicopter landing on one of the piers where usually we'll be playing Frisbee or laying out getting some sun. The second reason why I like this image is because it captures that our relationships with our governing structures are changing. that it's not the same way that it was 100 years ago. And that this image appears on Facebook, that 15,000 people liked it, and for those who had power during Sandy, even a few of us here in town and a few people here on campus in one of the buildings, it was a way to connect with the outside world and to understand, to try and comprehend what was going around us. Sandy also reminded us of social networks in the traditional sense. This is a picture from the Jubilee Center in Hoboken of ordinary citizens gathering, again, to try and make sense of what was going on, to try and make plans for the future. And finally, we could talk about this image for a long time. These are the charging stations that popped up spontaneously. Again, what is this? Is this technological? Is this social? What are the ties? There's clearly ties that bind. And there's old technology, there's new technology, and there's no real way, in my view, to pull these things apart. So let me tell you quickly about the 2 degree options we offer. The first is a Bachelor of Science degree in Science, Technology, and Society. And what I mean here by combining insights from the humanities and social sciences, if you think about the different disciplines, in the ways that I've explained them, you'll understand this. So historical aspects of, say, why was a power station located in a certain place? Why was the subway built in a certain way? From sociology and anthropology, students think about different social groups, how they interact, and how they advocate for themselves. From literature, we understand narratives and stories. How do we tell the story of Sandy? How do we wrap our heads around the chaos that happened? Is it a happy story? Is it a sad story? Who are the villains? Who are the heroes? From philosophy, moral and ethical questions. Who do we save first? How do we make those decisions? What is justice in a situation like this? And political science clearly is important too for how things happen on different political levels, not just the government, but many types of governments. The second major we have is a Bachelor of Arts in Science Communication. This one is the one that we hear most about from people who say, you really need a program like this. I think of students coming out of this program as translators. That is, translators between people who have mastered complex information but don't necessarily know how to communicate it, and the people who need to make decisions somehow about that information in ways that affect their lives. And these aren't just leaders. These are voters. These are everyday citizens. These are people like you and me. As the dean said, we train these students to have a critical and sophisticated appreciation of a number of different aspects of science and technology. These are 2 kind of information overload slides to reinforce some of the points that the dean made. First, we've got new courses in the history of, in science and technology studies. And we're building on a very strong foundation of courses in history, literature, philosophy, and social sciences. Many of these courses are taught by faculty who we've just met. Again, in the spring semester, you're going to see a trend, more courses in science and technology studies, and the same, if not more, courses taught by our faculty in our existing subjects. Again, talk to them. The one that I would just point out is the last one on the list. Utah's not here, but gender and race in science and engineering is a subject of particular interest here on campus and to us personally, to think about some of the gender and race disparities, particularly in the technical professions, and that critical approach, that historical and sociological understanding can be a foundation for change, for making recommendations both on campus and in state and federal policy. My last slide is to underscore also a point that my dean made, which is that this program was crafted to be in alignment with the strategic plan of Stevens and the plan to grow the Institute over the next 10 years. Any of you who have any liberal arts familiarity know that our #1 focus, interest is the students. We've always been student-centric. What we need to do more and what's ahead of us now, what we're doing is nurturing an intellectual community at Stevens on some of these topics. These are just the events in January happening on campus. I can't list all the ones for the rest of the semester, but Jared Diamond, whose work I'm sure you know, a conference organized by Professor Steinman and a panel discussion we're going to have here on Facebook and other online communities. We are collaborating actively with colleagues in different disciplines, both within Stevens and outside its borders. And what better time to get out of the ivory tower and direct our knowledge and our energy towards pressing social needs. And Sandy made us remember that there's no better place than to start right here. You've got the information in front of you. Here's the web address. I'm around to answer questions. Thank you for your attention.